Hello, good morning. This is Amanda, owner of Amanda Brook Designs. I am a cross stitcher, a pattern designer, and an educator. I teach how to cross stitch and give you tips and tricks on how to make your cross stitching more fun and efficient, and give you beginner advice as well as more advanced advice. So today, I thought I would hop on and talk about needles. I know it can be really overwhelming sometimes when you're walking through the craft store looking for the right needle, and so I thought we could talk about that today. So for starters, what I have in front of me today is my personal little container that I use to keep all of my needles in. So you can see that I have a few different brands, and then I have a varying amount of sizes. So when you're choosing a needle, there's a lot of things to consider. There's the gauge or the size, there's sharp versus blunt, there's the size of the eye of the needle. So we're just going to talk about all those things and how you know which one. This is my own personal little needle container. So I'm just going to pull a couple of these out. You can see I have an arrangement in here. So to start, blunt versus sharp needles. In my container here, I have both. This one says Chanel, which it's a sharp needle. You can see here on this DMC package at the very top, it does say sharp end. So when you're looking, if you see Chanel and you're not sure what that means, it does say right here on the package. So this is a sharp needle. I have tapestry needles. This is what would be considered blunt. It says round end. So that means the very tip of this needle is not sharp. So when do you need blunt versus sharp? Well, blunt needles are the needle of choice for cross stitch. The reason being, and I have one right here actually. The reason being is, hey Carol, when you're using Aida fabric, there are already holes in your fabric. So a blunt needle, you really don't need a sharp needle to pierce through this fabric. The blunt is just fine, and it slips right through those holes easily. Whereas a sharp needle, I'm trying to make it so I can see your guys' comments. Oh, I see. Hold on a second. There it is. Okay. So a sharp needle would be more appropriate for a fabric like this, where there are no pre-made holes. This is just a 4th of July fabric that I had laying around. It's just a scrap piece. So for this, let me see, I have a sharp needle here. This is actually a sewing needle, so it's got a pointed edge on it. A sharp needle would be more appropriate for this piece of fabric so that you could pierce through that easily. You can see that I'm going right through the fabric really easily with this sharp needle. Where a blunt needle, here's one here, this is an embroidery needle. You have to push a bit harder, and I don't know if you can hear the difference, but it doesn't slip right through. There's some pressure that you have to push, and it kind of pops through. I mean, you can see I can get it in still easily, but a sharp needle would be more appropriate for embroidery or cross stitch on a fabric like this. So those are the two types of needles that you'll mostly be considering with cross stitch or embroidery. Cross stitch though, you'll need the blunt needle for a fabric like Aida, where there's already holes. Now, I've discussed previously, and if you go back to the website and check out the blog, there's a post just strictly about Aida fabric, and this comes in different sizes as well. So your stitches will be different sizes. If your stitches are bigger, the holes might be bigger. And so the size of your Aida, or the size of your stitches on this fabric, will also determine what size of needle you need. So what you really want is a needle that doesn't fall right through. So let's see, this is a pretty skinny needle. This might be a 26 or 28. Actually, that one fits pretty well through here. I don't know if I have a tinier needle than that. What you don't want is to have a needle that's so small that it just falls through the holes. You also don't want a needle that's so big that it actually pushes the holes open and opens them up wider. So basically it's too big for the hole. So I have some kind of size recommendations. This right here in front of me is Aida fabric size 14. So you can get 14 stitches for every inch on this fabric. Needle size 24 is the recommended size for a size 14 Aida. I know that's very, very confusing. I have a little bit more information about sizing also on the blog. So if you go to amandabrookedesigns.com/blog or just .com, there's a link at the top you can click on for blog, and you can find, I've got a little shorthand that you can look up there. But for size 14 Aida, a size 24 needle is appropriate. So I have a whole bunch of extras here because I stitch on size 14 Aida very, very frequently. So I have a lot of extra tapestry needles for that purpose. Now, if you're doing something where you maybe are using all 6 strands of your DMC strands, you may want a needle that's a little bigger because the eye will be bigger. So for example, this eye, I don't know if you'll be able to see it very well. This eye on this needle is quite a bit bigger. I purchased this because I was going to be stitching with 4 to 5 strands, and so I needed a little bit bigger eye. The needle itself was too big if you were choosing the right size for the fabric. However, I did not want to use, let me see if I can find one here. If I put these right next to each other, I don't know if you'll be able to tell. They are magnetized. They like to stick to each other. So the eye on right here, they're all stuck. Let's see. Here we go. The eye here is a lot smaller. They just want to be together, I guess. This eye is smaller than that one, and I was using, like I said, more than 4 strands for a particular project, so I got this bigger needle. I think it is in 18. Yeah, 18 is what this one is here. So that's something else to consider, is the size of your eye. Now, make sure that if you have questions about any of that, that you let me know. Even if you're watching this on the replay, I will get back to you about fabric size, needle size, the blunt versus sharp, and then the eye size when the eye is important. For storing my needles, I just wanted to show you what I do real quick. I showed you this. This is actually my mother's. She used to be an avid cross stitcher and doesn't stitch quite as much anymore, so she gave me hers. This is a metal container that does have a small magnet in there, and it just slides open. You can still find these in your local craft store. I actually saw some at Hobby Lobby just the other day. And it just slides right back on, and I'll just show you the back. I find this interesting. This was 50 cents. So they're not quite that cheap anymore. But yeah, used to be 50 cents. And she got it looks like Leeward's. I don't even know that store. So I still use my mom's needle container. I just found this bowl. It is a magnet, and it's amazing. This is very similar to those sewing, they're like discs, like magnet discs that my grandmother used to have one. She had all her sewing needles and all her pins on that little magnet disc. I grabbed this because it's actually a bowl. It has a lip on it. The whole base of it is magnetized. It's from Pleasant Home. I can put a link in the comments for you if you're interested in this. I have been using this for everything. This thing, I mean, obviously it gets stuck in there. All my needles, if I just need to drop them in here or if I have a handful of them, they stick in there really, really easily. My husband gave me some safety pins the other day. He just had a whole handful of them, and I didn't have anywhere to put them. I have little kids. I just stuck them in this bowl and they don't go anywhere. So it's amazing. Even when I'm stitching, I took this with me in the car recently. I was the passenger, and I was stitching, and I had my scissors stuck in here. I had my needle minder stuck in here, and then my needles, and none of them moved. So this has been an excellent purchase. I highly recommend that. I wouldn't use this for storage per se, but it is great just sitting on my desk for all things magnet. So this here is a needle minder for while you're stitching. It's another type of magnet to kind of hold your needles in place while you're stitching. I mentioned that I had my needle minders in here the other day. I mean, they don't go anywhere. So, and then this one, I actually have a needle on here, so I'll just show you this. These are 2 other needle minders. All these are available in the shop, by the way. You can find me on Etsy at Amanda Brooke Design Co. Or on the website, www.amandabrookedesigns.com, and at the top, just actually you don't even have to click shop. If you just scroll down, these are on the top. But these are all magnet needle minders, so while I'm stitching, if I have to quickly put my needle down, it holds my needle in place. I don't have to worry about losing it. I don't need to pause to stick it in my fabric, which is the way I used to function a lot. It's really quick and easy. And same thing when I'm finishing on the back. I can easily, do what I need to do on the back, take my needle off my thread, and I can rest my needle on my magnet to trim my loose threads, and when I flip it back over, my needle is still available. So just a couple other accessories that I use for my needles. The last thing I wanted to review with you, which I just remembered, was when to replace your needles. I'm a tight stitcher. My stitching is usually pretty tight, and therefore I tend to put a lot of pressure on my needles, particularly when I'm finishing on the back of a piece, trying to get my needle underneath those threads. I tend to put a lot of pressure with my forefinger here. For me, what that does is sometimes I crack the eye. If you crack through one side of the eye and you continue to use your needle, it could potentially snag your fabric. It could definitely snag your threads. Your threads can get caught up and knotted. So that's one really important time to make sure that you're switching out your needles. Also, if you've used your needles for a really long time, or if the coating on the outside tends to break down, you could get little notches or rough spots on your needles. And again, if you're going in and out of your fabric over and over and over again, that could snag your fabric or your threads. So those are the 2 instances that I absolutely recommend just throwing away your needle and getting another one. As I showed you here, most of the packages that I found come with 6 needles. So one package should last you more than one project. I think it's pretty obvious that if your needle snaps in half, you'll need a new one. So I don't really feel that's necessary to review with you. But the 2 times that it'll kind of sneak by me that my needle just isn't functioning as well as it was before is I have cracked the eye by accident, just because of the amount of pressure that I have had to put on them in some cases, or just a rough spot that develops. So that's about all I wanted to review today. Those are kind of the high points of things to consider when you're choosing a needle, choosing your fabric size, just the general care of them, ideas for storage. I do have one more item that I purchased for storage. I didn't really care for this too much. I can't remember what this wood is made of. This is a handmade piece. It's basically just a little container, little twist off container. Thank you, Carol. I try to do my best to help you guys out and give you all the little tips and things that I find that work and don't work well for me. So, but yeah, this little piece, it just twists on and off here. I thought I would really like this. Especially since it's completely secure with the screw top. I thought, not that I have a lot of problems with this sliding on and off. It's really secure. You can hear it click on and off, and this is more than 30 years old, I'm sure. So I was thinking this would be a good option for me. However, what I don't like is that I can't see my needle. So when I'm choosing the size, or if I needed a sharp needle, it's easy for me to find it in this. I can just kind of dig around in here. I was not finding this to be as user-friendly for what I needed. I essentially needed to kind of dump them all out into my hand. There's not a magnet to kind of keep them together. And for those of you who have stitched for a really long time, or maybe you're just starting, it's really easy to lose a needle and it's really hard to find them sometimes. So if this works for you, I would say this is excellent quality. If someone's interested in where I got this, let me know. I can provide you with the link. But it just didn't work well for what I need. I'm sure I'll find a use for it for something. But as of right now, it just kind of sits in my drawer. So anyway, feel free to leave me messages like I mentioned. If you have any questions, I'm always happy to answer them. If you're watching on the replay, make sure you say hi. Let me know where you're watching from. Let me know, how long you've been stitching. And yeah, we'll catch you next time.